Today I'm going to be showing you my entire raptor collection from Jurassic World and ranking them from biggest all the way to the smallest. The first and largest raptor of this collection is this custom colored super colossal Indoraptor. This used to be a Velociraptor blue figure, but now it has the black with the gold stripe down its back for the Indoraptor. For the next biggest figure is another super colossal. This is Velociraptor blue. And as you can see, these two super colossal figures are actually identical. So this one originally used to be a Velociraptor blue just like this. Moving on to our next biggest figure is this Dino Tracker's Indoraptor. This is quite a new figure and it's got a really cool reflective blue color all over it. It's also got an action button on its back to activate its jaw. And you can move the arms to twist the neck back and forth too. Next up in size, let's see, I think it's actually another Indoraptor, but this is an older figure. This is the grab and growl version. And this figure is pretty hard to find nowadays, so it's actually pretty rare. And on this figure, you can use the tail to open and close the jaw, to swing the arms back and forth, and to move the entire torso. Check it out, they're pretty close in size. Next up, I'm gonna be opening a brand new one. This is the Primal Pal Velociraptor blue figure. Let's open it up. So this figure has a shorter tail than a lot of the Velociraptor figures I have, and it actually has some pretty realistic movements. You can move it side to side, it's got some sound effects, and you can push it down for a chomp action too. And let's set that right next in line. Moving right along here, I think we've got our final Indoraptor of this collection. A lot of these Indoraptors are pretty big. This is the smallest one, and it doesn't have any action buttons, but all of its limbs are still extremely posable. This next one is the basic Velociraptor blue figure. There's not too much that you can adjust with it, but it still has movable arms, legs, and a tail. This next one is another medium-sized basic Velociraptor figure, but it has totally different coloring. It's in a bright orange and brown coloring. Next, we've got our first Atrociraptor of this collection, and this figure I actually personally custom colored. This is another basic figure from Jurassic World, so it doesn't have that many action features, but I'm really happy with how the color turned out. Check it out, here's another Atrociraptor figure. This is the basic edition, once again from Jurassic World. So let's set this down right next to the custom colored one. And here is our first Pyroraptor of this collection. This is the basic edition, so you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail. And I think it might be a little bit smaller or actually the same size as the Atrociraptors. All right, here is the first and only Megaraptor that I have in my entire collection. This is from the Jurassic World Dominion series. It's got some huge claws on its hand, and when you press down on its back, it has a chomping action. For the next in size, let's go with the Hammond Edition Velociraptor. These raptors are pretty cool because they are super articulate with their limbs, and they have quite a bit more detail than the basic ones. And right over here is another Amber Collection Velociraptor. This one is Velociraptor Blue. Check out that blue stripe down its back. And here is the final Amber Collection Velociraptor that I have in this collection. This one is the bright green with stripes on it. And let's set that down right next in line. Next up here is a pretty old Jurassic World figure. This is one of the first Velociraptors that Jurassic World released for the first movie. And these figures have quite a hard time standing up, so let's see if we can get it to stand up in line as the next in size. All right, I think that's about as good as it's gonna get. Here is another Atrociraptor figure in the bright orange coloring, but this is actually a Rowdy Roars Atrociraptor. Let's turn on the power and let's see it come to life. All right, now we're getting down to the real small raptors. Let's open up this new Austroraptor from the Dino Tracker series. So I think this is the only Austroraptor that I have in my entire collection. And this one has a much narrower and longer snout than a lot of the Velociraptor figures I have in my collection, but it's still got some feathering on its elbows. right over here, I've got a super bright Velociraptor figure. It's in a bright blue color, and this one is actually spring-loaded, so you can launch it up into the air. Here, let me show you how it leaps. You press down, and then you release. This next one is another spring-loaded Velociraptor, but this is in a brown and dark brown coloring. Let's check out that jumping action on this one too. Next up, this Velociraptor figure has a slashing action. So when you push on its torso, it swings back and forth, and it's actually spring-loaded too, so it can be pretty fast. All right, let's set this down next in line. This next one is a darker colored Velociraptor, and it has a different feature. There's a button on its back that you can use for a slashing action. Next, we've got our final Atrociraptor figure of this collection, and this is a battle damage edition. There is a button on its back that you can use to activate the battle damage on the side. And since we're out of space on the very end of the table, let's start a new line up front here. This next figure is a newer Velociraptor from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got a darker body with some bright detailing on the top. This next raptor is a really cool colored Velociraptor. Check out that green speckled detailing on the top of its body. And let's set that down right there. Here's a different looking Velociraptor blue figure. This might actually be Velociraptor Beta because it does look quite a bit younger. Now this is an amazingly colored Velociraptor. Check out that reflective gold right on its head. And let's put that next in line. All right, only two left. This next one is another Pyroraptor figure, but this one is in a battle damage edition with a button on the top to open and close the battle damage. And the final raptor in this biggest to smallest collection is this click tracker, Atrociraptor. So after you turn it on, you use the remote and it follows the sound. Let's check that out. It's pretty cool. I like that it's motorized. Today we're going to be checking out a collection of some of my scariest carnivore dinosaurs from biggest to smallest, and we're going to be putting them up over here to check them out side by side. So let's get started with the biggest one, the Indominus Rex. This figure is absolutely massive. It is larger than a lot of my T-Rex figures, and this is actually the battle damage edition. See, it turns red when you press the button, which is really cool. Plus, the rest of the body is very adjustable. You can move all its arms, its legs, you can adjust its neck, and it even has a button on its tail to activate the jaw. So let's go ahead and set the Indominus Rex down at the edge right over here. Moving on, let's see what the next largest dinosaur is. Probably the Giganotosaurus. This is another super large figure. It's got the green body with the black detailing all over, and it has a few actions actually as well. The first action is a button on the top of its tail that activates the swinging action with its entire upper torso. And there's also a button beneath its tail to activate just the jaw alone. All right, let's put this Giganotosaurus down right next to the Indominus Rex. And look at the size difference even between those two as well. That's pretty crazy. All right, next up, let's see. I bet it's one of the T-Rexes, and it's probably the Hammond Collection Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. This figure has some awesome coloring and shading and is the most posable out of basically all my T-Rex figures. And an interesting feature of the Hammond collection is the realistic parts of its mouth. It's got these flaps on its side that are rubber, so they actually move around pretty realistically. The tongue is also rubberized as well. Let's put this Hammond collection T-Rex right next to the Giganotosaurus. All right, I bet the next biggest one is this other T-Rex figure. This is a Jurassic World Dominion T-Rex. It's got some brand new coloring. It's got the orange-brown color and some gray detailing on the top. And this is actually an extreme battle damage T-Rex. You can press the button to reveal the damage on its side, just like that Indominus Rex over there. So, since this is the next biggest T-Rex, let's put it down right next to the Hammond Collection T-Rex. All right, looking pretty good so far. Next up in size is this Allosaurus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. This is the largest Allosaurus figure that I have, and it actually has some battle damage on the side. Let me show you that. Right here, you see it's hidden completely right now, but then you can click it down to reveal the ribs, and then you can even lift those up to reveal the intestines inside. This is really cool, and the only Allosaurus that I have that can do that. Plus, it has an action button on its back to activate the jaw. Let's put this Allosaurus down right next to the extreme battle damage T-Rex. Let's see, what's next biggest in size? I think it might be this Indoraptor right here. This thing's pretty large. It's got the all black body with the iconic gold stripe down its side. And this one actually has a few actions. You can see there's a little button on its tail right there to activate its arms. And there's a button at the bottom of its tail to activate its jaw too. All right, let's set this Indoraptor down next to the Allosaurus. That Allosaurus is quite a bit larger. All right, let's keep digging. I think this Carnotaurus might be the next largest size. It's got some battle damage on its nose, and it is the darker brown version of the Carnotaurus. And it has the action button on its tail to activate the jaw as well. Let's set it down. You know what? I think it might be larger than the Indoraptor, so let's go ahead and have them switch places real quick. There we go. That's looking better. Over here, we've got another Carnotaurus figure, but this one is smaller than the one that I just showed you, and it is a bit more brightly colored. It's a brighter red, it has the light underbelly, and then the black detailing on the top, and it has an action button on its back instead of its tail to activate the jaw. All right, let's set it down. Right next to the Indoraptor. Let's see, I think the next biggest carnivore in this collection is a Tarbosaurus. And this is definitely a scary looking carnivore. Check out that red underneath its chin and those red eyes too. And all those spikes, those are massive. Let's put this down right next to the Carnotaurus. Check out all those dinosaurs we have so far. Super cool. All right, let's see, next in size, maybe this other Allosaurus figure right here. This Allosaurus has a slide lever action on its back, so you get a bunch of different sound effects with it. You can get a growl all the way to a roar. All right, let's set this dinosaur down right next to the Tarbosaurus. And it is quite a bit smaller than the Tarbosaurus. Next up, I think, is the Giganotosaurus. This is the Sound Surge Giganotosaurus, so a whole lot smaller than the one that we saw earlier, but it has the same coloring and detailing, and it has sound effects that you can hear that you can activate by pressing this button up top. All right, let's set it down right next to the Allosaurus. They're actually pretty similar in size, so it might be a little hard to tell who's larger, but I think it's still the Allosaurus. Next, I think, is a Raptor figure. This is the new Jurassic World Dominion version, and it is the basic version as well, so you can't open and close the jaw, but you can move the arms, the legs, and the tail a bit. Let's set this down right next to the smaller Giganotosaurus figure. Next up in size in the scary carnivore collection is the Raptor. This thing has some super bright coloring. You can tell that it is a feathered dinosaur. You can see some feathers on its legs, on its tail, on its arms. It's pretty cool. So let's set this down right next to the Raptor. Next up is this slightly smaller Indoraptor, a bit smaller than the earlier version that we saw, but it has the same coloring, and this one actually does not have any action buttons, but it is superposable. Let's put this down next to the Raptor. Next in size, we've got the basic Velociraptor figure from Jurassic World Dominion. This has the white body with the brown striping all over and those bright red eyes. Let's put this down next to the smaller Indoraptor. Here is an Amber Collection Velociraptor. I can't remember which Velociraptor this is, but it has the brown coloring with the darker striping all over its body. Looks like we're running out of room on the edge there, so we're gonna create a new row right up in front here. Next is this much smaller Indominus Rex figure. This is an earlier version of the Indominus Rex compared to this one way over here on the edge, and look at that size difference too. And actually, I think this smaller Indominus Rex has a slightly more blue tone than the super large one. It's pretty cool. Let's put this down right next to the Amber Collection Velociraptor. For the next smallest scary carnivore, I've actually got this brand new one from Jurassic World Dominion. This one I believe is pronounced Quilnosaurus. Let's open it up. So this is a pretty interesting looking dinosaur, and it's actually an extreme battle damage edition that you can see on the sides. Just click this button, and there you go, you reveal the damage underneath. Plus you can pose its neck, and I think you can even open and close its mouth too. There we go, that's pretty cool. Let's put this down next to the Indominus Rex. The next up in size of scary carnivores is this extreme battle damage Pyroraptor. Just like the dinosaur that we just saw, there's a button on top that activates the battle damage. Plus, the rest of its body is posable as well. And check out the size difference from this Pyroraptor to this basic Pyroraptor right there. A huge difference in size. Let's put it down right up front here. All right, now we're getting down to the really small ones. Here is a super small Atrociraptor figure. It has the same color as the basic Atrociraptor that we saw earlier, but is a whole lot smaller. So let's put this right next to the Pyroraptor. And I've actually got one more Atrociraptor figure in here with totally different coloring. This one is a bright orange with tan stripes on its body, and it's got some yellow, evil looking eyes. So let's put this right next to the smaller Atrociraptor right in front. And it looks like we've got a few Velociraptor figures in here. This first one is Velociraptor Blue with the iconic blue striping down both sides of its body. So let's put Velociraptor Blue right next to the orange Atrociraptor. And this other Velociraptor that I've got in here is a brown and yellow Velociraptor. It's pretty similar to Velociraptor Blue, but different coloring, and it's got some reflective green eyes. That's pretty cool. Let's set this one down. And finally, I've got some super small Jurassic World scary carnivore figures in here. Let's put these on the table and check them out one by one. I think the first largest is probably this Baryonyx. I think it's a Baryonyx figure. It's all green in color, so not a whole lot of difference with the coloring, but it's got a decent amount of texturing. Let's put this next to the larger Velociraptor. Next up in size, let's see, I think is probably this Velociraptor figure. This one has two different colors on it, even though it's so small. Oh no, actually three. It's got a pink tongue and the two tones of gray on its body. That's pretty cool. Let's put it down next to the Baryonyx. Next up is the Carnotaurus figure. I got this one pretty recently in a pack, and you can actually open and close its mouth. Let's set this one down here. And last of all is this Baryonyx figure that actually came in the same pack as this little Carnotaurus. Let's put them side by side, and it is a bit smaller. All right, we're finished. Today, I'm showing you all of my T-Rex figures from biggest to smallest, so let's jump in. My first biggest T-Rex is this super colossal T-Rex from Jurassic World. This T-Rex has a bright orange body with a darker brown top. And just like all my super colossal figures, it can swallow miniature dinosaurs down its throat to the stomach compartment that you can open it up. My next biggest T-Rex is this super colossal Jurassic Park T-Rex. This is actually from Jurassic World Dominion. It has a much darker body. It's got black on top, brown on the sides, and a lighter underbelly. It's got a huge jaw, and this figure can also swallow miniature dinosaurs and open them up in the stomach compartment. Next up, we've got a Jurassic Park T-Rex. I believe this T-Rex was called the Bull T-Rex. And this figure too can swallow miniature dinosaurs and other small stuff, and you can empty it out in the stomach compartment. Right on top here, we've got the Hammond Collection Tyrannosaurus Rex. This figure has some of the coolest coloring out of all the T-Rexes that I have, and it is remarkably adjustable too. You can bend the legs in all different directions, at the knees, at the ankles. You can bend the arms, you can twist the neck, and you can open the mouth, of course. Next, I've got this huge Jurassic World T-Rex with this ginormous head. This figure has the black top and brown sides, just like the super colossal T-Rex from Jurassic World Dominion, and this T-Rex can be controlled by moving the tail around. Back here, we've got, I believe, what is called the Terran T-Rex or something like that. The special feature on this T-Rex is the tearing action with its mouth. It swings its head around and closes it at the same time. And it's got a secondary action button to swing the tail around too. This T-Rex, also from Jurassic World, is a stompin' T-Rex. When you twist the tail, it stomps its legs up and down. And it has those cool sound effects too. Plus, as you notice with the cage, it actually breaks free from the cage just by pressing the button on its back. That is pretty cool. Here we've got another Jurassic Park T-Rex. So this is a very old figure. It's got the rubber body, and with this T-Rex figure, you can move the tail to swing the head back and forth. So it's not as advanced as the new Jurassic World T-Rexes, but it's still pretty cool. We've got tons more T-Rexes to go. Let's keep digging. This huge T-Rex with similar coloring as the first super colossal T-Rex that we saw has some pretty cool functions. When you swing the tail, it swings its head back and forth, and it has a roar function when you move the tail, and a chomping action. All just by moving the tail. That is pretty cool. Over here, we've got a darker gray colored T-Rex with some brown on the top. This is also by Jurassic World, and you can twist the neck around, you can open the jaw, there's a button on top, activate the chomping, and you can swivel the tail around and move the legs as well. I think this one's bigger than the rest of them. This T-Rex has one of my favorite functions. It's actually battery operated, so that when you press the button on its tail, it opens its mouth and shakes. It actually has a motor in it to do that, which is pretty cool. Plus, you can move the tail around to swing its neck around to look. That's really cool. This T-Rex was custom colored a long time ago. It's got the bright green on the side, and it's got like camo colors and black all over the rest of its body with the lighter underbelly. And just like that bright orange T-Rex we saw just a second ago, you can control chomping and roaring with this figure just by moving the tail around. Next up, we've got a light brown T-Rex from Jurassic World. This is very similar in function to the darker gray figure that we just saw. It has the chomping button on the top of its head. You can move its neck around, and you can adjust the rest of its body parts too. This is the extreme battle damage T-Rex from Jurassic World. It's got some different patterning along the top of its body compared to the rest of them, but the most important part is the battle damage on both sides that you can press this button up top to turn it on and off. Plus, the rest of the figure is very adjustable as well. Here's another T-Rex with some battle damage on it. It doesn't have the extreme battle damage on the side that you can turn on and off, but it does have these slashes all over its body, even its legs and its tail too. The rest of the figure is very adjustable, and of course, the button at the top of the head for chomping. Next up, we've got another custom colored T-Rex. This one is a super bright red color. Looks kind of like fire in my opinion, and it's got the black on the top and the orange striping right along the sides. And this figure is adjustable just like many of the other figures that I've shown so far too. Next up, we've got another bright orange T-Rex with the brown top. This figure is fully adjustable throughout its body, and it's got the chomp button at the top of its head. Here's one of my favorite T-Rexes. This is a dark green color, and I'm not sure that I have any other green colored T-Rexes in my collection, so this one's pretty special to me. It's also got the black detailing along the top, and its body is fully adjustable with the legs, tail, arms, and neck, and there's the button at the top of its head for chomping. Let's keep going. We still got quite a few T-Rexes to go. This T-Rex is from the old Jurassic World toy line. It's got a rubberized neck, so it's a bit flexible there, as well as the rubberized tail. And it has a chomping action with the tail. Now we're getting down to some slightly smaller T-Rex figures. This is a Jurassic World T-Rex, and it is actually a hybrid. It's got some spikes on the top of its head that you can push down and activate them by pressing the button on its back. Here is another custom colored T-Rex from the old Jurassic World toy line. It is bright red in color with black spots all over and the yellow underbelly. And it also has a chomping action on its back. Here's another similar T-Rex from the old Jurassic World toy line. This T-Rex is light tan in color all over its body. It's a little bit lighter on its belly. And just like the other two that we just saw, it has the chomping action button on its back. All right, this next T-Rex is a little bit smaller. This is a Jurassic Park T-Rex. I believe it's a juvenile T-Rex, and it's actually got some battle damage right on the side. Next up, we've got a new Jurassic World Dominion figure. This, I believe, is the Sound Surge T-Rex. It's pretty small in size, and you have to open and close its jaw manually, but it does come with some awesome sound effects. And we've got some model T-Rexes in here. I'm not sure what brand this is from, and you can't move any of the limbs or the jaw on this figure, but it's got the dark brown coloring. It's got some interesting shading and black stripes all over its body. Here is another dark brown model T-Rex, but on this one you can open and close its jaw. It's also got the black stripes and the lighter underbelly too. Check out that little bit of yellow right there on its nose. It's interesting. Here is a dark green model T-Rex. This one you cannot move any of its body parts, so it is standing in this awesome roaring pose, just like I'm sure you've seen in the movies. Here is a bright orange or red model T-Rex. With this figure you can open and close the jaw, check out all those little teeth, and this figure looks quite a bit more muscular than a lot of the T-Rexes, I will say. Here is a super bright model T-Rex. It's got the bright blue along the top of its body, as well as the gold stripes. It's got a gray underbelly and some teal coloring right along its face. Here is a darker model T-Rex. I love the attention to detail with the skin. It's like you can see all these little bumps all over its body. It's got the black stripes as well, and on this model you can open and close its mouth. Here is a super striped T-Rex. This has some really bold black stripes right along the top of its body, while the rest of its body is this soft tan or orange color. And it's got some super bright yellow eyes too. And unfortunately, you cannot move any of the body parts on this model. Next up, we've got a light green colored T-Rex with some darker shading and detailing along its body. You can see those bumps right along its spine. And this figure does not have any moving parts either, so it is stuck in this roaring pose. We've got some even smaller T-Rexes in here. Here is a Jurassic World T-Rex that is pretty small. It's probably 7 inches from tail to the nose, and it fits easily in my hand. It's got some battle damage on the side, and the tail controls the jaw and face. We've actually got a few more Jurassic World T-Rexes just like that last one. This first one is actually a hybrid T-Rex. It is a hybrid with a Dilophosaurus, as you can tell by these huge frills in the front. It's still got the battle damage on the side, and it's got this reflective gold along the top of its body and the very front too. And this T-Rex has a bright green body. It's got the battle damage on the side still, and some darker detailing right along its face. This T-Rex figure is from Jurassic Park, so this is a super old figure. It's got some interesting purple detailing along the top. It's got a tan body, and actually, this figure has a unique feature on the leg. You can actually bend it like that, because it is a broken leg for this T-Rex. Right over here, we've got another juvenile T-Rex. This one has a bandage on its leg and the restraint on its mouth, so it can't bite people. It is super bright green with some cool detailing along the back and is very adjustable with all of its limbs too. This baby T-Rex is also from Jurassic World. It is bright green or yellow in color with some detailing along the top. And when you pull down on the tail, it chomps its jaws shut. All right, we've got some super small T-Rexes in here. I believe this one is from Jurassic World. I'm not sure actually, but they are both brown in color. This one is very adjustable. You can even move the tail around, you can move the legs and open and close the jaw. But this figure doesn't have any moving parts actually. And our last two T-Rexes of this collection from biggest to smallest. We've got a bright blue T-Rex with black stripes and no movable body parts. And this T-Rex here can move the legs, you can twist the tail around, and you can open and close the jaw too. Welcome back to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we're checking out my collection of Velociraptor versus Triceratops. And I've even got some other species that are close relatives of the Triceratops in here too. First off, we've got the Velociraptor blue figure from the Amber collection. This figure is very movable and very posable. You can see the iconic blue stripe down its side. You can open and close the jaw, move the neck all around. All in all, is a very posable figure. Next up, from the Amber collection is Velociraptor Delta. This figure has some pretty cool detailing and coloring on its body. I love the teal green color and the light underbelly. It's really cool and is very posable as well. Can move all the limbs in its body and it is extremely posable. Over here, we've got a Jurassic Park figure. So this figure is really old. This is one of the classic Triceratops figure. You can see that it's got some battle damage, a huge chunk taken out of its side right there. And this Triceratops actually has an action that when you squeeze its stomach, it moves its head up and down. This is another Velociraptor from the Amber collection. This one is Velociraptor Echo. It's got the brown and black coloring along the top with the lighter underbelly, and just like the other figures, is extremely posable. And one thing I haven't pointed out yet is that the tail is actually a bendable rubber. There's like a piece of metal in there, so you can actually bend it and it'll stay in place. That's pretty cool. Here is a Triceratops figure. I think this one might be from Camp Cretaceous, but I can't remember. Let me know in the comments if you know where this Triceratops is from. But it's got the clay red body. It's like a little orangish almost. It's got the brown detailing along the top and the action button on its back for the roaring. Plus, you can move all of its legs too. They can go back and forth a little bit. Here is a bright red and purple Velociraptor figure. This is the classic size for the Velociraptor figures. You can open and close the jaw, you can move the arms and the legs as well, but there's no action button on this one. This Velociraptor is an even brighter red and it has some bright green striping and detailing along the top. You can actually move the neck back and forth on this figure and up and down. And this figure is actually spring-loaded in the legs so that it can actually leap up into the air if you were to let it go, which is pretty cool. Up next are these two green Velociraptor figures. They look almost identical, but you can tell that the coloring on this one is a little bit darker. See those stripes? They're a little bit darker. But they both have a button on their back to activate the arm action. Here is one of the brightest dinosaurs in this bin. This is a hybrid Triceratops. As you can tell, it is a hybrid with a Stegosaurus. It's got those gold coloring right along the top there. It's got a little bit of battle damage on the side. And when you move the tail, it actually sticks its head forward as if it's stabbing something. Here's another Velociraptor blue figure, but this is in the classic smaller size. Of course, you can see the iconic stripes down the sides of the body. And it is pretty posable. You can move the arms, the legs, and you can open and close the jaw too. Here is another dark gray Velociraptor, but instead of the blue stripe, we've got some yellow detailing along the top, along its tail, and on the top of its head as well. And this figure is fairly movable as well. You can move the arms and the legs, and of course, open and close the jaw. Here's another super old figure. This is a Jurassic Park Triceratops figure. It's got a dark green coloring along the sides with a darker green along the top. And this figure actually has an action button that when you move this leg, it moves its head up and down. I bet you saw this super colossal figure already too. This is the super colossal Velociraptor Blue. Check out that huge blue stripe down its body. It's got some huge claws on its hands. It's got the light underbelly, and of course, like all the super colossal figures, it has the stomach compartment so you can feed it smaller dinosaurs. Up next, this isn't a Triceratops, but I believe it is a Spinosaurus. So pretty closely related. Comes with some sound effects as you can hear. It's got some pretty cool coloring with the gray along its body. It's got some brighter yellow right on the front as well. And you can use the tail to control the head. Before we go any further, I've actually got some brand new figures that we're gonna open up right now. Let's start with this Jurassic World Dominion, Dr. Ian Malcolm, and Velociraptor pack. So here is the Velociraptor from the pack. It's got a dark green color and some pretty cool detailing along the top. It's like brown and then some green detailing speckled in too. That's pretty cool. I don't have another Velociraptor that is colored like this. And here is the Dr. Ian Malcolm figure with an electric staff, as well as some grasshopper figures that I'm sure you recognize from the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. Next, we've got the Triceratops from the Hammond collection. I'm excited to check this one out. This Triceratops is a dark brown color. It has some pretty faint detailing along its body. You can see it's a bit lighter in some areas, but overall it's kind of the same brown color everywhere. It's got a lighter underbelly, but my favorite part is the face and the frill too. That's where the most detail is. Look at these horns. They've looked like they've gone through a lot of wear and tear. I love those orange eyes. So yeah, the face is definitely my favorite part of this figure. And it is fairly movable as well. You can see that you can move the legs back and forth and up and down and all over. And there are 2 joints in the tail as well, which is a pretty cool detail. So all in all, it's okay. I would have liked to have seen better coloring along the body because it's pretty subtle and it kind of just looks like a brown Triceratops all over. But it's pretty different from the other Triceratops I have, so I'm still happy to have this in my collection. Next up, we've got Velociraptor Charlie from the Amber collection. This figure has the bright green coloring with the darker stripes along the top and is just as posable as all the other Velociraptor figures. We've got another hybrid Triceratops figure, and I think we've actually got another one with different coloring. These are both hybrid Triceratops mixed with a Stegosaurus. You can see battle damage on both of them, and on both these figures, when you move the tail, it swings its head forward as if it's stabbing, just like the bright blue one that we saw earlier. Here's another large Triceratops figure. This one actually has 2 action buttons. The first one activates the head to move up and down, and the second button swings the tail. It's got some pretty dark coloring as well. It's a dark green with some dark brown detailing along its top and on the front as well. This Velociraptor is a dark blue color. It's got some darker stripes on the top, and it's actually got an action button, I believe, that activates the arms. There we go. And of course you can open and close the jaw and move the head too. Here is a little Triceratops figure. I think I've actually got 2 of these that are identical. Both of them have the extreme battle damage right there on the side that you can open and close, which is a pretty cool feature. And both of them are this light green color with the brown on the top too. Here's another bright Velociraptor figure. This one is a bright blue with darker striping along the top. And this one is actually spring-loaded, so like the other ones that we saw, if you bend the legs and then let it go, it'll actually jump up into the air. Here's a dinosaur species that's a relative to the Triceratops. This is the Zuniceratops. It's got the 2 horns in the front and a big frill, and then the green body with the darker detailing along the top. Next up, we've got a Velociraptor with a slashing action. This figure is spring-loaded, so you can swing it side to side to swing those arms and claws around. That's a pretty cool feature. Here's another big dinosaur figure. This is also a relative to the Triceratops. This is an Pseudoceratops, and it has 2 action buttons on its back. The first one activates the head for the roaring, and the second activates the tail. That's pretty cool. Plus it's got some dark green coloring on its legs that fades into the blue, and then the red detailing on the top and on its face too. Looks like we've got 2 more Velociraptor figures in here. This first one is another super bright Velociraptor with the orange and yellow, and it is also spring-loaded, so this one will jump up into the air as well. And this other Velociraptor is Velociraptor Blue with battle damage on the side that you can open and close. And then finally, I've got these itty-bitty little Triceratops figures from Jurassic World. They all look pretty identical, but with different coloring. This first one is a dark brown color. Also got a gray one with lighter gray on the top. And finally, this bright green one with lighter green on the top. Today, I'm showing you my ultimate collection of Velociraptor versus Baryonyx versus Carnotaurus figures. Let's get started with these brand new ones that I just bought to add to this collection. First up, we've got Baryonyx Limbo from the Camp Cretaceous pack. Let's open it up. This is so cool. This is actually the first of this Baryonyx that I have in my collection. It's got a lime green body, it's got a darker green along the bottom of its back, and it's got some brown detailing on its neck all the way to the top of its head. You can move all the limbs and the tail on this figure, and there is a slide lever action for roaring and the sound effects. Next up, we've got the Velociraptor from the Jurassic World Attack Pack. Let's check it out. This Velociraptor has some pretty unique coloring. It's got a dark blue body and a dark red detailing along the top, which is pretty unique. I don't know that I have another figure colored like this. And here we've got another Velociraptor, but this is actually from the Hammond collection. Let's open it up and check it out. This Velociraptor figure is even darker than the one that we just saw. It's got a dark green body with brown detailing on the tail, all over the back on its legs, and it's still got the lighter underbelly all the way to the chin. And since it's a Hammond collection figure, you'll notice that it is much more posable than a lot of the classic Velociraptor figures. You can move basically every limb on this figure. Let's dig into this bin now, and we're gonna start with the Velociraptors over here on the left. The first one here is Velociraptor Delta from the Amber collection. You'll notice with all these Amber collection figures that they are very posable, just like the Hammond collection figures. And Velociraptor Delta here has some bright blue coloring with a lighter underbelly. This is Velociraptor Blue from the Amber collection. Very posable, just like the last one. Can move the tail and all the limbs. And of course, it's got the iconic blue stripe all the way down the body on both sides. This, I believe, is Velociraptor Echo. This is also from the Amber collection. It's got the light underbelly, a brown body with some darker striping, and the black top too. The next Velociraptor from the Amber collection is, I believe this one is called the Tiger Velociraptor. I can't quite remember. Let me know down in the comments if you remember. I also forgot to mention earlier that in all the Amber collection Velociraptors, you can actually move this claw up and down, just like real life. This last Velociraptor from the Amber collection is Velociraptor Charlie. This figure has a lime green body with darker green detailing all over its back and tail. It's got this headpiece attached to its head, and just like all the other ones, it is very posable and adjustable, and you can stand it in any way you want on your shelf. Let's see what other Velociraptor figures we got in here. I've got these smaller ones. This bright red Velociraptor is actually spring-loaded on its legs, so you can spring it up into the air, which is really cool. It's also got some pretty bright and awesome coloring too. This other Velociraptor is also spring-loaded in the legs, so you can spring it into the air, and it's also got some bright coloring too. And of course, I've got Velociraptor Blue in the smaller figure with battle damage on the side. Right over here, I've got some Jurassic Park Velociraptors. So these figures are some of the oldest in my collection. You can see the Jurassic Park tattoo on their legs on both of them, but they've both got some different coloring. This is an orange and red Velociraptor, and this one, which I'm sure you've seen before, is brown with the black striping all over its body. This Velociraptor is pretty normal looking. It's got the brown body, a little darker brown on the top, but my favorite part is that it's got some bright green eyes. This next Velociraptor figure is another spring-loaded leaping Velociraptor. This one is also super brightly colored. It's got the bright blue on the sides with the darker blue along the top. Here is another Velociraptor figure with muted colors. It's got the gray body with the dark blue detailing along the top and some soft orange eyes. This is another version of Velociraptor Blue, but this one is the spring-loaded leaping version. So just like the others that I've shown you, it can bend down on its legs and it'll spring up into the air if you let it go. And of course, it's got the iconic blue coloring. Here is a basic Velociraptor figure from Jurassic World. It's a lot larger, but the limbs cannot move as much, and it's not as versatile. Even the jaw cannot open and close. But it's still got some pretty cool coloring, the orange body, brown detailing, and yellow eyes. This is another basic figure from Jurassic World, but this is Velociraptor Blue. It's got the soft green-blue body with the iconic blue stripe down on both sides of its body and the yellow eyes. You know what? I almost forgot these super colossal figures right here. This first Velociraptor is black around most of its body, but it's got this brown striping down the sides with some yellow speckling that's kind of hard to see on camera, but it's also a little bit on its arm as well. It's got some super amazing colored eyes, and of course this super huge jaw that you can open up all the way to feed it miniature dinosaurs down to its stomach compartment. Way back here, we've got the super colossal Velociraptor Blue figure. This super colossal figure is very similar to the Velociraptor that I just showed you. It's even got the same amazingly colored eyes. And of course, it's got the iconic blue stripe down both sides of its body. Pretty adjustable with its limbs. And of course, it's got the stomach compartment down from its throat all the way down to its stomach, so you can feed it miniature dinosaurs. All right, I think that's it for all our Velociraptor figures. Now let's move to the Baryonyx figures right here in the center. The first one is the Baryonyx figure from the Hammond collection. So you'll see that this figure is very posable and adjustable with all its limbs. Plus, it's got a little more detail than most of the other Baryonyx figures. Next up, we've got the Baryonyx with the battle damage on its body. You can see a huge slash on its neck. It's got some on its leg as well. And I think that's the only battle damage that's shown on this figure. But it's also got the button on its back for the chomping. This is an older Baryonyx figure from Jurassic Park. So this figure is a lot older, and as you can see, it is designed quite a bit differently. But it also has an action that when you move the leg back and forth, the head twists. This is a brighter Baryonyx. It's got a light gray body with white, dark blue, and bright blue detailing on the top of its head. And this figure comes with a slide lever action for different roars and sound effects. This next Baryonyx figure is similar to the one that I opened up at the very beginning of the video, but it has a slightly more forced green color, and it has two tones of brown on the top. It's got the light brown in the back and the dark brown along its neck, and then the light brown right along the top of its head once again. This Baryonyx figure came out during the Fallen Kingdom era. It's got the light brown body with the blue detailing along the top and the super bright orange along the top of its head and nose. Here is another Baryonyx figure from the Jurassic Park series. So this figure, once again, is a lot older. It has the bright yellow underbelly and some light brown with black specks along the top. And like the other Jurassic Park Baryonyx that we saw earlier, it has the action that when you move its leg, its head twists back and forth. Here is our final Baryonyx of the bin. This figure has a light brown side and underbelly. It's got the dark blue detailing all along the top from the tail to the head, and it's got the bright blue reflective coloring right along the top of its head and nose too. There's only one more dinosaur left in the bin, and that is the Carnotaurus figures. Let's start with the super colossal Carnotaurus Toro figure. This figure has the iconic clay red sides with the lighter underbelly and the brown top. It's got the two huge horns on the top of its head. It's got a little bit of battle damage on the right side of its face. And of course, it's got a huge jaw that you can open up all the way to feed it miniature dinosaurs. This Carnotaurus figure is from the Fallen Kingdom era. It's got some darker red coloring with some purplish coloring along the top. And this Carnotaurus has a different action button than all the rest that I'll show you. It has a chomping action that moves its neck as well. This, I believe, is the Control and Conquer Carnotaurus. It has a much darker red, pretty much brown coloring along its body. It's got a gray underbelly and a dark brown top. And with this figure, the tail controls the neck so you can twist it back and forth, as well as a button on its tail for chomping. This next Carnotaurus, I believe, might be from Camp Cretaceous, but I can't quite remember. It's got a lighter red and slightly orange coloring along the side with the brown top and the gray underbelly. And this figure also has the tail that controls the head, as well as the button for chomping. I've also got some smaller Carnotaurus figures in here that are not from Jurassic World, but are a bit more generic, but they differ quite a bit more with the coloring. You can see that this one's got some green coloring with it. Still got the iconic horns though. And this figure has some bright orange along its face. You won't see that with the Jurassic World figures. And this figure looks a bit more like Jurassic World with the red and the spines. But this figure has some ginormous horns on the top of its head. That's really cool. Here we've got the Carnotaurus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's even got the broken horn on the top of its head. This figure is colored entirely different too. It's got the dark green body with the orange detailing along the top. So it looks like they started to mix it up for the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. And last of all, we've got the Jurassic World Chompin' Carnotaurus figure. This figure looks more like a baby Carnotaurus in a lot of ways. It's got some huge eyes that you can actually blink with by pressing the button on the top of its head. And it's got a button on the bottom of its tail for a chomping action. Welcome back. Today we're checking out a huge collection of 50 Jurassic World dinosaurs from Jurassic World Dominion, Camp Cretaceous, and a lot more. Let's start with the biggest figure in this entire bin. This is the Apatosaurus figure. This figure is ginormous. It's very similar to a Brachiosaurus. It's got the long neck, but it has a totally different face and a much stockier body, I think. But the figure itself is pretty cool because you can move all the legs, you can swivel the tail back and forth, you can move the neck back and forth too, and there's a surprising amount of detail on its face. You can even open and close its mouth too. This thing is ginormous. Next up, I believe released as part of the first Jurassic World movie, is this hybrid Indominus Rex figure. It's got the bright red coloring, it's got some special features, can pop out those spines, its jaw opens and closes, and as you can hear, there's tons of sound effects too. Way over here from Jurassic World Dominion, we've got an extreme battle damaged Tyrannosaurus Rex. This figure is darker than a lot of the T-Rex figures that I have, and of course, it's got the battle damaged slashes right on its side that you can open and close to hide completely or to show. That's really cool. Here is another giant T-Rex figure. This one might be from Camp Cretaceous, but I can't quite remember. But this one is a dark green coloring, which I love. It's got some black striping along the top, and it's got the action button on the top of its head to activate the jaw. Over here, we've got a Tarbosaurus figure. This figure has tons of spikes running down all the way down its spine to its tail. It's got a dark gray body with some red right underneath its neck and chin, and it's got some action features as well. It can open and close the jaw and move the neck. This, I believe, is the Parasaurolophus figure. It's got some really cool pink reflective coloring, which is a pretty special feature. You can move all of its limbs, and you can use its tail to move its head up and down, and in all directions. Over here, we've got another Parasaurolophus figure, but I think that this one is from the Amber collection or the Hammond collection. I actually can't remember. But it's got some pretty cool coloring and striping along its body. This figure is very poseable. You can even bend at the elbows and at the knees and at the ankles, which you can't do with a lot of Jurassic World figures. So that's pretty cool. Next up is the purple, orange, and blue Sarcosuchus figure. This dinosaur spends a lot of its time in the water. It looks a bit like an alligator actually, and it's got some awesome spikes running along its back, and it has some action features that you can use the tail to move the head around and open and close the ginormous jaw. Here we've got an Ankylosaurus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. Comes with sound effects as you can hear, and when you press down on its back, it actually swings its tail back and forth. This is the new Triceratops figure from the Hammond collection. It's got a whole lot more detailing along its skin, which is pretty cool. The coloring is a little bit varied along its body, but the best part is that there are many points of articulation. You can move all of its limbs in all sorts of directions, and I love the detailing on the face too. It's really cool. Here is the Sound Surge Carnotaurus from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got the all red body and of course the sound effects. Next up is the basic Spinosaurus figure in the dark green coloring with the red spine. You can move the legs and arms and tail, but you can't open and close the jaw on this figure. Here is the Camp Cretaceous Scorpius Rex figure. This one is a bit smaller than the other Scorpius Rex figure that I have. It's got a green body with some black detailing along the top, and you can move all of its limbs as well, even open and close the jaw. Here is a T-Rex figure from the first Jurassic World movie, and this one was actually custom painted, so you won't see this one much around, but it's got the red body with the black stripes and spots, and the yellow eyes, and an action button on its back to activate the jaw. Right here, we've got the Ceats Microrarum figure. This is a pretty unique figure. I love how the teeth fit into the jaw perfectly. See that big tooth right there and how it fits in perfect? That is super cool. Plus, it's got tons of spikes along its neck and its back, and you can use the tail to control the neck and the jaw too. Way in the back here, we've got the Carcharodontosaurus figure in the tan, brown, and orange coloring. It's got some little spikes running up its head all the way to its tail, and it's got an action button on its back to activate the chomping action. Here is the Yangchuanosaurus from Jurassic World Dominion. So this is a newer figure. It's got the green body with brown detailing, and you can actually move its whole body quite a bit. You can move its torso up and down, and you can use the tail to control the head too. Right here from the first Jurassic World movie is the miniature Mosasaurus figure with battle damage on the side. That is really cool. I have quite a few giant Mosasaurus figures, but this one is still really cool and decently detailed as well. Watch out, we've got another Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. This one also has the battle damage on both sides of its body that you can turn on and off. Plus, the rest of its body is very poseable as well. Next up is the Cryolophosaurus figure. I think this one might be from Camp Cretaceous, but I can't remember. But anyways, you can move the tail to move the head up and down, and you can move all the limbs and open and close the jaw too. Here's a couple more figures from the first Jurassic World movie. So these figures are pretty old. These are both miniature Spinosaurus figures. They both have the battle damage on the side. This one is more wildly colored, and this one's a bit more realistic. Next up, I've got a giant Dilophosaurus figure in the red coloring with these super bright frills and crown in the front. That is really cool. Here is a Pachycephalosaurus figure with the green and brown coloring and the battle damage that you can open and close on the side. This figure is from Jurassic World Dominion. It is the Rajasaurus with the dark blue coloring and the white on its neck and chin as well. Plus, it's got some spikes right along the top of its neck. And with this figure, when you press down on its back, it has a chomping action. This is another Scorpius Rex figure, but this is the basic edition, so you can't open and close the jaw, but you can still move the arms, the legs, and the tail around, and it has some pretty cool coloring and detailing along its body. Looks like I've got another Cryolophosaurus figure in here. This one is bright yellow with brown and orange detailing along its head, and just like the other figure, you can open and close the mouth, and you can use the tail to swing the neck around. Oh, look at this. I've actually got another Rajasaurus figure too, also with different coloring. This one is light brown with the dark blue coloring along its back and neck. And just like the other Rajasaurus, you can press down on its back for the chomping action. This is the Albertosaurus figurine with battle damage on its side. Check it out, you can see its stomach, then you can even close the ribs, and then you can even close the skin to hide it all. That is really cool. Plus it's got some battle damage on its leg as well, and the rest of its body is pretty adjustable too. So this is a pretty awesome figure. This, I believe, is a Sinoceratops from the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. It's got a bright yellow tail with a green body, and its eyes are all black, which is really cool. With this figure, you can press down on its body for the roaring action. Next up, I've actually got some brand new figures that we're gonna open up on camera here. The first is this Funko Pop Giganotosaurus figure. So this Giganotosaurus figure comes on a clear stand. It's got some interesting coloring. It's a lot different than the Mattel Giganotosaurus figures that I have. It's got the light gray coloring on the underside, this gray-blue coloring all along the top, so it's not very green like many of the other figures. And it's got these huge yellow eyes without pupils, which is interesting. Plus you can see a little bit of battle damage, some slashes and scrapes here and there, all along its body too. And we've also got the Dino Rivals Dual Attack Triceratops. This Triceratops is a light gray color. It's got some darker detailing along the top. And as the name says, it has two action buttons. The first is for the horn slashing or roaring action. And there's a second button for the tail whipping too. Whips its tail back and forth. It's pretty cool. Here we've got a similar dinosaur. This one, I believe, is a Sinoceratops. It's got the green and tan coloring with the tan underbelly and a little bit of orange on its frill in the front too. And this figure has one action button on its back to activate moving the head up and down. Next up, we've got a smaller figure. I actually don't remember the species of this dinosaur, so let me know down in the comments if you recognize what type of dinosaur this is. It's got an action button on its back to move its head back and forth. I've also got a few mini figures right here, both with different coloring. This first one is a greenish color. It's got some interesting detailing along its body, and the other one is red with white spikes, which is really cool. I think this one is definitely my more favorite one. Next up is the Ceratops figure. Pretty similar to a Triceratops. It's got those two horns in the front, but it does not have the third horn, and it's got some different coloring as well. Over here, we've got a baby T-Rex figure. It's got the light green body with some darker green detailing, and it's got an action that you can use to open and close its jaw. This is a Carnotaurus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's a lot smaller than most of the Carnotaurus figures, but it's got some pretty cool coloring, very different from the other Carnotaurus figures, and it's still quite posable as well. Here's an interesting looking dinosaur. I believe this one is a Shringosaurus or something like that. I can't quite remember, but the most interesting part is it's got spikes, little spikes on its shoulders and huge spikes on its tail. That's pretty cool. Right over here, I've got a battle damage Coeloris figure that you can actually turn the battle damage on and off, just like the giant T-Rexes that we saw earlier. That's pretty cool. Here is a baby Brachiosaurus figure in the light green and dark green coloring, and it is pretty adjustable as well. You can move the neck, the legs, and the mouth as well. Right over here, this, I believe, is a Stygimoloch figure, and it has an action that when you move the tail, it has the headbutting action. I've got a few Velociraptor figures in here as well. This first one is the spring-loaded version, so you can actually have it jump into the air because its legs are spring-loaded. I've also got one, I believe, from the Amber collection, so it's a lot more detailed and a lot more articulate with its limbs, so you can move its arms and its legs quite a bit more. And I've also got this third Velociraptor figure with some pretty cool blue coloring. It's pretty unique with its coloring, and it's got an action button on its back to move its claws up and down. These next figures are Herrerasaurus dinosaurs. They both look pretty identical except from the coloring. This one is a light blue-gray coloring, and this one is green with brown on the top, and this one actually has battle damage that you can open and close on the side. And for the final figures, we've got Dr. Ian Malcolm, and we've got a Dracorex figure with all these spikes on its head. Plus, you can move its neck up and down, and its arms and legs as well. Welcome back to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we're checking out not just one, but 2 bins of Jurassic World figures. There are 100 Jurassic World figures in here. Let's get started with this bin on the right. First up is this hybrid Indominus Rex figure. Even got sound effects too. Plus, there's spikes that come out on its back too. This is an extreme battle damage orange Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's got the battle damage all over its body, and there's an action at the top of its head to activate the jaw. Next up is the Stomp and Escape T-Rex. This T-Rex has a button on its back for the jaws, and you can use the tail for a stomping action. Here's another Indominus Rex figure. This one has a rubber neck while the rest of its body is a hard plastic, and you can use the arms to open and close the jaws. Over here, we've got a Terran T-Rex. This T-Rex is pretty cool because it has a button that activates the tearing action with its mouth. Look at that. That's pretty intense. And there's another button on its back to activate the tail. Over here, we've got a really cool Spinosaurus figure. This figure is pretty big, and it's got some awesome coloring and detailing all over its body. And like many of the other large figures, it has a button on the top of its head to activate the jaw. This, I believe, is called the Ceats Microrarum. It's got an orange and blue body with some gray detailing as well. It's got tons of spikes on its head, and you can use the tail to control the mouth and the neck. This is an orange Velociraptor. It's a pretty basic figure, so you can only move the arms, the legs, and the tail, but it's pretty large and still pretty cool. Here is a huge Allosaurus figure. This has the classic coloring for many of the Allosaurus figures, and best of all, it's got battle damage right on the side that you can open and close. This is a T-Rex figure, but with some cool coloring. It's got the red and the black spots all over its body, and the light underbelly as well. Plus, it's got an action button on its back to activate the jaw. Here's a similar T-Rex of the same size, but with totally different coloring, and actually, this one is a hybrid T-Rex because it has spines that pop out of its back, just like that. Next up is a Carcharodontosaurus figure. This figure is medium sized and it has one action button on its back to activate the chomping action. This is an Albertosaurus figure. It's got the dark green body with orange detailing, and you can use the tail to control the head and jaw on this figure. Here is a medium-sized Velociraptor figure. It's a lot bigger than many of the Velociraptor figures that I have, and I actually have a few other that are very similar to it as well. Check these out. They're all around the same size and have many of the same features. This one is a light tan with green stripes. This one's darker colored, and this one actually has some battle damage on its side that you can press. I believe this dinosaur is a Pachycephalosaurus. It's got a dark purple coloring with some detailing along the top and an action button with its tail for the headbutting. Next up, we've got a smaller Indominus Rex figure with battle damage on the side that you can open and close. That's pretty cool. Plus, you can use the tail to control the head on this figure too. Next up, I believe this is the Ceratops figure. It's got the dark blue body with some different coloring all throughout. It's got those huge horns in the front and two action buttons. One to lift up its head and one to swing its tail. This is a huge Pteranodon figure. It's pretty basic because it can't do a whole lot, but it has some pretty cool coloring on the wings. You can move the wings up and down, as well as open and close the mouth. I've got another winged dinosaur here, but I'm actually not sure what type of dinosaur this is, so let me know in the comments below. This big dinosaur, I believe, is called an Amargosaurus. It's got two huge ridges on its neck that go all the way down its back to its tail, and it has two action buttons, one to operate the neck and one to operate the tail. Here's another huge Velociraptor figure. This one is actually Velociraptor blue. It's got these stripes down its side, and you can move the arms, the legs, and the tail on this figure. This is the basic Scorpius Rex figure. It's got the poisonous quills on its tail, and you can move the arms and legs on this figure too. Next up is the Pentaceratops figure. This figure is pretty close to a Triceratops, but it's got a huge frill on the front and a ton more horns too. You can use the action button to lift up its neck and to swing its torso around too. Here's a couple more medium-sized Velociraptor figures. This first one is a dark green with black stripes, and this other one is a lot brighter, and it actually has battle damage on its side as well. That's pretty cool. Plus, with this figure, you can use the tail to open and close the jaw. Here is a Triceratops figure with the clay red coloring and the brown on the top, and it's got one action button to lift up the head. This next figure, I believe, is the Spinosaurus. Also looks quite a bit like a Triceratops as well, but again, some big differences in the front. And with this figure, you can use the tail to control the head. Next up is the giant Quetzalcoatlus dinosaur. This winged dinosaur is from the new Jurassic World Dominion movie and has a few action buttons on it. The first action button you can press to flap its wings, and the second button activates its jaw. Here's a Dimetrodon figure with the light blue-gray coloring on the sides and the giant red spine on top. Check out these smaller dinosaurs. I think these are both called Proceratops. We've got one with the purple coloring and a little bit of yellow. The other one is light green with also some yellow coloring as well. This is a dark green and light green Sauropelta with those huge spikes coming out of its back. Here is a smaller carnivore dinosaur. This is a Herrerasaurus, and it's got an action button with its tail that opens and closes its jaw. Here is a Styracosaurus figure. It's got those two super bright circles right on the front and tons of horns around its head too. Here is the Shringosaurus figure. It's pretty odd looking. It's got the yellow body with the brown detailing on top and a super long neck and some horns at the very top. This is the Miragaia figure. It's got a dark body with some lighter coloring in the back and those two giant horns sticking out of its back too. Here's a smaller Triceratops figure with battle damage right on the side that you can open and close. This is a Stygimoloch figure with the dark brown coloring on the sides and some darker detailing along the top, plus an action button to activate the headbutting action. This is a Parasaurolophus figure. This is a newer one, I think from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got the light tan body with some darker detailing right along the top. Here's another Pachycephalosaurus figure with a light tan body and the darker coloring along the top, and the action button on its tail to activate the headbutting. This is a baby Brachiosaurus figure. You can move the neck up and down as well as move the legs and open and close the jaw too. And here are two Gallimimus figures, one with a dark green coloring and one with the light tan and brown coloring along the top. We've got one more bin to go, but before we do, let's check out these brand new ones that I just bought, including this giant Dreadnoughtus figure. Let's open this one up first. All right, here is the Dreadnoughtus fully assembled. It's actually really hard to show even the whole thing on camera because it is so long. This neck is a lot longer than a Brachiosaurus, I think. Let's check out the head first. You can open and close its mouth. And you can move the neck back and forth. See that swivel right there? You can adjust the legs. And you can even move the tail back and forth too. This figure is ginormous and it has some pretty cool coloring along the top and the sides as well. This next figure, I think, is pronounced the Rugops Primus figure. It's from the Ferocious pack of Jurassic World Dominion. This is a pretty cool looking figure. It's got the dark green body with the black tail and the black detailing around its head. And you can move the legs, the arms, the neck, and the head as well. Next up is the Jurassic World Herrerasaurus figure. This figure has a lighter green body with some teal blue coloring along the top, while its face is that dark green color too. You can open and close the jaws manually, and you can move all the other limbs as well. Next is the Jurassic World Legacy Collection, Dr. Ian Malcolm. Here is Dr. Ian Malcolm with his fiery torch, and it also came with this small dinosaur. I can't remember the name of this dinosaur, but it's a pretty cool set. And next, we've got the Camp Cretaceous Soundstrike Pteranodon. All right, let's unfold those wings. This is a pretty big dinosaur. It's probably a foot long from wingtip to wingtip, and it's got a few action buttons as well. The first one you can press to flap its wings and get some sound effects. And the second button activates its jaw. Now let's dig into this second bin. First off, we've got an Indominus Rex figure. This figure is huge and has the classic gray coloring that you can see in the movies. Over here is another Pteranodon figure, but this one I believe is from the Amber collection. So it's got rubbery wings and a whole lot more detail too. This is another huge Spinosaurus figure. This one has the green body with the light underbelly, but it's still got the red spine and the red detailing around its face too. In the back here, we've got a T-Rex figure with the camouflage coloring. That's pretty cool. And this T-Rex has two actions. You can pull up on its tail for a chomping action, or you can pull down on the tail for a roaring action. Here is a T-Rex figure from the first Jurassic World movie. It's got a rubbery tail and a chomping action when you lift up its body. Here's another T-Rex figure with the gray and brown coloring on its body. It's very adjustable with its neck and its legs and its arms, and there's the button at the top of its head for chomping and roaring. This is a Carcharodontosaurus figure with the blue coloring on the sides and the brighter detailing along its back. And it's got an action button on its back for the chomping. Next is a Stegosaurus figure with the gray-blue body and the lighter underbelly. And this figure has an action button that when you press down right here, it swings its tail back and forth. Watch out for those spikes. This is an Allosaurus figure with a slide lever action on the top, so you can get a bunch of different sound effects and different roaring poses too. Here is a Suchomimus figure with the blue body and the yellow detailing along the top. And this figure has one action button for the chomping. Here's one of my favorite dinosaurs, the Carnotaurus. This figure has the red coloring on the side and the dark purple on top with an action button to activate the jaw and the neck. This, I believe, is another Sinoceratops figure. It's got the light green body with some yellow detailing on its tail and on the front as well. And when you press down on the back of this figure, it lifts its head up. This is another Allosaurus figure with different coloring. It's got the gray body with the yellow detailing. You can move all of its limbs, and it has an action button on its back to activate the jaw. This is a Ceratosaurus figure with the gray coloring on the bottom and some brown and red all the way up to the top of its face. Here is one of my largest Indoraptor figures. This figure has a few different actions. First, there's a button on its tail to activate the arms. You can use the tail to swivel the torso around, and there's a button on the bottom of the tail to activate the jaw. Next up, we've got a huge Dilophosaurus figure with the bright red coloring and the even brighter frills in the front. This is a pretty basic figure though, so you can't do too much with it. You can move the arms and legs and the tail a little bit. Here is the Iguanodon figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got the light tan body with some lighter striping along the top, and when you press down on this Iguanodon, it lifts its head up and down. Next up is a Cryolophosaurus figure. This figure has some darker coloring along its body. It's also got some brighter red detailing all the way up to the crown on the top of its head. And you can use the tail to swing the neck back and forth too. Way over here, I believe this dinosaur is called the Kentrosaurus. It looks kind of like a Stegosaurus, but it's got these huge spikes coming out of its side. And this figure has a slide lever action on its back to swing those spikes back and forth. Here is a Triceratops figure in the brown and blue coloring. Plus, you can use the tail on this dinosaur to control the neck. All right, we've got a Baryonyx figure in here. This one has the light brown and the dark gray blue coloring. And there's an action button on its back to activate its jaws. We've got another Baryonyx figure in here, but this one is super bright. It's got the bright green coloring along its side and bottom, and the brown along the top, plus that action button to activate its jaw too. Here's a pretty rare dinosaur. This is the Edmontosaurus. It's got some pretty cool coloring along its body, and you can use the tail to control the neck. Next up, we've got a Velociraptor from the Amber collection. This one is the bright orange and brown Velociraptor, and it is super posable. Here is an older Ankylosaurus figure. This one is actually a hybrid, and it has special armor plating that you can take on and off. Plus, it has an action button that when you move this leg, it swings its tail back and forth and moves its head too. I've got a few mini T-Rex figures in here. These are also older figures from the first Jurassic World movie. They're both pretty identical, but with different coloring, and they both have the action where you can move its jaw and its neck by moving the tail around. Looks like I've got some more Velociraptor figures in here. Check out this one. This one is dark blue, but it has the yellow and gold coloring along the top of its head. I've also got these green Velociraptors too. This one is in the sneaking pose, and this one has some really cool detailing along the top of its body. These two figures are both Dilophosaurus figures. This one is the newer figure and is a bit smaller, but it does have an action button on its tail to activate the frills and open the jaw in the front, which is pretty cool. And this older Dilophosaurus figure, I believe from the first Jurassic World movie, it's a bit bigger, has battle damage on the side, and you can use the tail to move its neck. Here's another Stegosaurus figure. This one has the brown, tan, and green coloring, and it also has an action button that when you press down right here, it swings its tail back and forth. Looks like I've got 3 more Ankylosaurus figures, all with different coloring. This first one is brown and has the green and gray coloring on the top, plus with an action button to swing its tail. This next Ankylosaurus has the clay red underside with the tan and brown on top. And this third Ankylosaurus has the yellow coloring on the bottom with the green and gray on top, and a slide lever action to swing the tail back and forth. Here is another Dilophosaurus figure from the first Jurassic World movie, and this figure is super bright. Plus, it has the action on its tail to move its neck up and down. Here's another giant Stegosaurus figure. This one has a softer green-blue coloring, and it has the action button that you press down to swing its tail back and forth. Here's another Stegosaurus figure, but this one has the gray, brown, tan, and green coloring all over its body. And this one actually has 2 action buttons. The first one moves its head up and down, and the second one swings the tail back and forth. This is a Parasaurolophus figure with the light yellow coloring and the brown stripes, and it's got 2 action buttons. The first moves its head up and down, and the second swings its tail back and forth. We've got some more Velociraptor and Atrociraptor figures in here. First, we've got another Velociraptor blue figure. We've also got this purple and red Velociraptor. And we've got 2 Atrociraptor figures as well. We've got one that's tan and in the crawling pose, and we've got a bright orange-red one with the white striping. Next up, we've got a Sauropelta figure in the clay red color that can swing back and forth, so you better watch out for those spikes. We've also got this Moros Intrepidus figure with the light green coloring and the orange on its tail too. Here's another small Indominus Rex figure. This one also has the battle damage on its side, and you can use the tail to control its jaw and its neck too. This is another Stygimoloch figure. This one does not have any action buttons, but you can move its legs, its arms, and its head around too. And here is also another baby Brachiosaurus figure. This one though has the gray and purple coloring right along the top. And last of all is this Herrerasaurus figure with the dark blue coloring and the lighter detailing on its back and all the way up to its head too. Want to see more dino videos? Click the subscribe button now.